Political group seeks court's views over public funds. MVIL says 26 million kina spent on insurance this year. And Western Highlands chief and leader laid to rest.
This is the National MTV News with Meribah Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us for Thursday's news. Members of Parliament representing different established registered political parties, together with a number of independent elected MPs, have decided to form a new political grouping. They're calling themselves the Alliance. The group made known their intentions to seek a Supreme Court interpretation on the distribution of public funds such as the District and Provincial Services Improvement Program.
The Alliance comprises 7 parliamentary members representing the 4 regions of the country: Southern, Highlands, Momase and the New Guinea Islands. Their core responsibility: the rule of law, governance and effective public services administration, monitoring and checking corruption.
So I'll be seeking a declaration from the Supreme Court, not only as a reference but also a declaration to declare that it is unconstitutional. The practice of distribution of development funds that favor the government at the expense of the opposition members is unconstitutional.
The Alliance President, Ilageno, says this is to ensure democratic institutions and individuals are adequately protected and allowed to perform their official duties without fear or favor and to be compliant with the rule of law.
This alliance thinking represents the party policies and the doctrines of the Papua New Guinea Constitutional Democratic Party, which is basically to do with compliance with the rule of law, the Constitution.
The Alliance seeks to play a vital role in confidence with the caliber of members of Parliament who make up the membership and leadership of Alliance, led by Semekere Morauta in Parliament.
It is incumbent upon the President to assist all members of Parliament in their quest to serve their voters in their respective electorates at the districts or provinces. This is to ensure that all the voters, for them, their members of Parliament, receive services and benefits in their respective districts or provinces with minimum of endurance. And I underline.
The Alliance will do a formal launching in February next year, where it is inviting the public and like-minded individuals to join. Daisy Yallo, National MTV News.
Hela election manager John Tipper has been arrested by CID officers in Port Moresby. Following a tip-off last night, Mr. Tipper was arrested at a nightclub despite refusing arrest. He was charged with forgery and false reporting. His arrest is in relation to his first charge of armed robbery, whose conditions he breached. Police say other charges will also be laid against him once the investigation is complete. With less than 10 days to the end of the year, the Implementation and Rural Development Department has received development expense acquittals from only 50% of the country's 89 districts under the District Service Improvement Program. Kairukuhiri District was the latest in line to submit their documents today.
The overall audit objective is to determine whether each of the districts has managed its DSIP funds effectively and efficiently and in compliance with requirements of Finance Instruction, the Public Finances Management Act and other applicable laws and regulations. According to Peter Isoaimo, member of Kairukuhiri, his district is now leading in the Central Province by submission of DSIP funds reports on time.
To put these reports together, and let me make it clear, it's not the role of our leaders to put these reports together. You administrations, this is your role. You have to make sure that these reports are done in a timely manner. Don't procrastinate until some later years, maybe down the track, and then trying to put the reports together, you will find difficulties. And it's going to be a problem.
Himmat Shalagram, National MTV News.
Motor Vehicles Insurance Limited has spent 26 million kina this year on insurance. This is because of increased road accidents, according to the Acting Chief Executive Officer, Befino Koi. And next year, there will be a 4% increase on insurance of vehicles nationwide.
This was announced during the signing of a new contractual agreement between the Independent Consumer and Consumption Commission and MVIL in Port Moresby. The contract identifies areas where MVIL needs to improve on in the next 5 years.
5 years that we have done the contract, there's some things that we have to learn as a business and from the regulatory perspective that we have actually gone through together. We have actually worked together with ICCC on day-to-day basis in terms of addressing. And the contract is for 5 years, but we do that reviews on a yearly basis to see what the particular activities where the contract says, and we need to manage that through. So that has been happening for the last 5 years.
The new contract will be effective on the 1st of January 2018. Key areas include data management and MVIL to pay an additional fine of 500 kina if it fails to pay insurance to vehicles involved in accidents within 6 months.
Cost of each vehicle. So in terms of actually identifying accidents and claimants, the vehicle class has now been increased. So this is now good for the consumers as well as ICCC and MVIL, because that will be helping us to understand the actual cost of insurance.
According to statistics from MVIL, 25-seater PMV buses, especially those using the Highlands Highway, were said to be involved in many accidents in 2017.
The most high-risk vehicles are the 25-seater coasters and PMV buses and Toyota ICE buses. Those are very high-risk motor vehicles, and a couple of them, Highlands Highway is basically the highest risk area.
Thus, MVIL acting CEO explains that the 4% increase in insurance is a result of the increase in accidents.
I think the provisions of the past regulatory contract has been fully complied with by MVIL. Throughout the process to establish or to come up with the new regulatory contract, I think the key findings in this new regulatory contract, I think we've come up with an understanding between both parties that the data management system is one key area that we need to establish going forward for the next 5 years.
Thakla Gunga, National, MTV News.
The appointment of board members for the Southern Highlands Provincial Health Authority by the National Executive Council has been found null and void by the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, reinstated Mendi Provincial Hospital Board Chairman Alex Awesa has welcomed the decision and called on for the appropriate process to be followed when making new appointments. The Mendi PHA Board will resume its functions while the process of nominations and appointments continue.
There's no reason for the appeal because it was a straightforward case.
The first respondents were board members of the Mendi Provincial Health Board who were not considered for nomination by the Provincial Executive Council to be appointed to the board of the Southern Highlands Provincial Health Authority. The National Court ruling by Justice Colin McKay in November 2016 ruled that the gazetted NEC decision on the appointment of the Southern Highlands Provincial Health Authority board members as null and void. McKay stated that there wasn't an appropriate nomination process under the Health Authority Act. The Governor for Southern Highlands Province, William Powie, then filed an appeal and a stay order on the National Court ruling. Fast-tracked to 2017, the appointment of the current board members of the Southern Highlands Provincial Health Authority in 2016 was found by the Supreme Court that the nominations did not comply with the Provincial Health Authority Act under Section 17A to F, and the appointment of the board members as null and void.
I welcome the court decision of the Supreme Court on the 11th of December. The three-man bench decision was unanimous. They dismissed the appeal by Governor Powie, and in the decision they also discharged the Supreme Court stay orders, and they have effectively reinstated the Mendi Hospital Board. So the net effect of all of that is that the Mendi Hospital Board will maintain status quo and go back to operate whilst waiting for proper nominations to take place.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has now directed an internal audit into the Southern Highlands Provincial Health Authority, and Awesa says the reinstated Mendi Provincial Health Board will see that the PM's direction is executed.
Documentation on record where the Prime Minister, Honourable Peter O'Neill, has given directions for an audit of the Southern Highlands Provincial Health Authority Financial Affairs since the day they were appointed to the 11th of December. This reinstated board, the old board, will have to go and check the financial records.
The Mendi Provincial Health Board chairman says there is too much political interference with the appointment of the board members and less work being done improving health standards in Southern Highlands Province.
Provinces like Enga, they've given them, the O'Neill government has given them a huge amount of money. And for Southern Highlands, because we're still playing politics, we still haven't completed the design stage because of too much politicking.
The Mendi Provincial Health Board will function up until the new appointment of the Provincial Health Authority.
So that's probably something that Southern Highlands people will look forward to in light of all this chaos that's happening in the province at the moment with the court case and political disputes and so on and so forth. So.
Adelaide Xerox Kari, National, MTV News.
Heads of the University of Goroka, Professor Joseph Sukwianom and Vice-Chancellor Dr. Musawe Sinabare are pleased with the progress of the higher education institution. Speaking today in Port Moresby, Professor Sukwianom admitted that under difficult circumstances, they have learned and gone through many prudent changes with its administration and student learning processes. And come April 2018, the university will see over 1,000 students graduating.
The two senior members of the UOG Council said they were happy with the recent changes and administration of the university since the boycotting of classes and student unrest in 2015 and 16. Chancellor Sukwianom says the university has been steadfast in every decision to maintain accountability and sound management.
The University of Goroka, however, on the other hand, we sustained and provided stability and respect and confidence that the people of this country and their government wanted. So we continued to provide the atmosphere in which students were able to study and complete their programs of study.
University of Goroka has gone through financial struggles in its operation. However, Vice-Chancellor Sinabare says constant dialogue with the national government has been positive with better allocation in the 2018 budget.
This year's budget for next year, University of Goroka was given a favorable budgetary allocation, and that is inclusive of the public investment program of 10 million, as the Chancellor was mentioning, for the construction of our central administration building.
A crucial change which has impacted the university is the modernization of academic programs and structures in the administration, research and infrastructure. Dr. Sinabare is confident all this will result in the university achieving better results in producing quality teachers for the country and the Pacific.
One aspect of improving quality is teacher education. You get a good teacher, you must keep that teacher in a class. You may have a good teacher, but if you don't look after their salaries and leave fares, they'll be out.
UOG is expected to graduate over 8,000 students in April 2018. Other campuses in Mount Again and Solomon Islands will also do the same. Jack Lapave Jr., National, MTV News.
Meanwhile, UOG Vice-Chancellor Dr. Musawe Sinabare has applauded the new selection system recently introduced by the Higher Education Department. Dr. Sinabare says the system will avoid cheating and other illegal practices that have been overlooked over the past 10 years. He says space allocation in tertiary institutions has been limited and the country must produce the best to raise the level of qualifications by enrolling students with credited results.
When there is no cheating, that is good because everybody will have an equal chance of competing for places in universities. When there is cheating, there are certain people who make their way into the universities through this approach. And therefore I am very happy that this year we are hearing that it's very, very limited opportunity for cheating to happen.
A task force has been set up by the Higher Education Department to investigate unauthorized results of the selection on social media prior to its official release. Departmental head Father Jan Schuba says although the information leaked out did not have any impact on the actual selection, the department will not take this matter lightly.
2 days after the official grade 12 selection saw students' raw academic results from certain schools were being leaked out onto social media site Facebook. According to DHEST, the selection results were not influenced by this. However, they hope not to have the same mistake again.
In my understanding, it was very unprofessional, not legal and not acceptable. So our task force is investigating. We have a combined task force because this challenged the Department of Education and us, because our staff, both Department of Education and our staff, are honest, hard work.
Father Jan says the PDF files of selection marks is to be done away to avoid such practice again.
We had a manual selection using paper and manpower. This PDF file was given to universities who asked for. Just always, the PDF file always was given. This year, we had all the data given to us in Excel, which was imported into the software, but institutions asked for the PDF. There are 3 institutions which asked, was UPNG, Unitec and Goroka. The PDF was given, and right now, the Department of Education and the Department of Higher Education form one task force, and we are investigating who was the person who took this PDF file, scanner, and put up on the social media.
Meanwhile, Father Yang says school leaver forms for next year will be updated in consultation with National Education Department to meet higher education standards. He said the current SLF forms are outdated and do not meet DHES standards. Stacey Yallo, National MTV News.
You're watching National MTV News. A chief and leader in Western Highlands laid to rest today. That story and more after these messages. Welcome back to the news. Western Highlands chief and leader, the late Dr. Andrew Doctor, was finally laid to rest after his passing 2 weeks ago. The late Andrew initiated the Komkui Group Corporation, which owns one of the iconic buildings in the heart of Mount Hagen City, the Komkui Building. He was one of the last groups of chiefs in Western Highlands to live to see developments taking place in the province.
The funeral service and burial of late Chief Andrew Doctor was held yesterday in his home village of Komkui in the Hagen Open Electorate. The late chief was a great warrior, leader, peacemaker and musician in Western Highlands and other parts of the Highlands region. His tribesmen recalled that Chief Andrew never missed a target when shooting with a bow and arrow.
Late Chief Andrew Doctor, he was determined. Go ahead, the leadership.
In 1987, Doctor formed a business group with his tribesmen, the Komkui people, with the determination to maintain peace and good order. The tribes of the Moge Komunuka and Moge Kwipi came together and formed the business group, known today as Komkui Business Group Corporation. As the group's chairman, Dr. spearheaded the constructing of one of the tallest buildings in the Highlands region, Komkui Building and AGC Plaza. The late chief was a very influential appointed member of the Provincial Assembly and a premier in the 90s. With his power, he influenced the provincial government to bring basic services to his home village and managed to influence the land and district courts.
All the man many stuff, but late water Chief Andrew house belongan you miss a house man belongan with Catholic Church.
He is survived by 3 wives, 13 children, 29 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. After his funeral service, the late Andrew's body was flown in a helicopter for the last time, touring Mount Hagen City and the Komkui Building before being laid to rest. Late Chief Doctor had a great vision for his people and the people of Western Highlands Province to live a healthy, peaceful and Christian life. He died at the ripe old age of 73. Vasinata Yama, National MTV News, Mount Hagen.
2 health workers evicted from their houses by the National Housing Corporation in Leh have both moved back into their houses following stay orders from the district court. Bafigo Don and Zuabe Tining with their families spent more than 4 nights after they were locked out of their homes. Both women recalled their experiences as traumatic, especially for their children.
The makeshift shelter that had become home to this family since last week Friday was pulled down yesterday. Zuabe Tining and her family were granted access to their home. The lock to the gate was forced open as police and the lay MP John Rosso looked on.
Thank you through. I'm big plan relief straight Lomilo. Me can come back inside the house now. Me can live in one plan normal life as a one plan human being.
Zuabe Tining was given her land title to this property in 2016. Soon after, she started getting eviction notices. Last week, they were given a 48-hour eviction notice and were forced out on Friday.
Me imagine this how much day rain and put on how me work close enough na me no sleep good this night there.
Lay MP John Rosso, through his office, engaged a lawyer to assist these NHC victims.
The case is not over. She's got a stay order, and we will do everything to help her when the case goes to court in February. And if she wins it, she wins her house back.
This morning, senior physiotherapist at Enga Bafigo Don and her family were still outside. Despite being given a stay order 2 days ago, they were not given access to their home until this morning.
Property manager talk, okay, give me 1 plus stay order. So we gave him a copy. Now I'm looking this now talk. Okay, now you plug and go inside.
Both women have attained stay orders from the district court, restraining the NHC staff and agents from evicting them from their properties. They say the experience has been traumatic, especially for their children.
And all my kids, a little baby blew me malaria. Now she's traumatized. I'm still recovering. Is this it?
Yes, me must come back in the house too.
Lucy Kopana, National MTV News, Ley.
Lay MP John Rosso says development deals in the city have to be transparent and in the best interest for the people. This follows a summons served to a local company by the Ley Urban Local Level Government for allegedly interfering with development at the old Ley Airport. Mr. Rosso says locals put a stop to the process as they were suspicious of the development deal.
A lot of illegal land grabbing.
The Rybex Stevedos Limited General Manager George Guare has been summoned to appear before Ley District Court on January 23 next year on allegations that he interfered with developments at the old Ley Airport. The summons were prepared by Ley Urban Local Level Government and served separately to Mr. Guare as first defendant and the company Rybex Stevedos second defendant on Monday this week. The summons were served shortly after Ley MP John Rosso released findings of Ley City Council audit report last Friday that revealed a misuse of 17 million kina.
Most of our employees are also, people from villages from Ahi. So when they saw developments happening, people trying to access the land, they sort of took that upon themselves to try to intervene and try to refer that to the relevant authorities. And I think there was a confrontation earlier during the national election back in July. So that was all put on hold. And just recently, we started to see people mobilizing, trying to come back onto the land. But that land really we're talking about is currently vacant. Rybex not operating on that land. But this is the piece of land which I think has attracted a lot of interest.
The Ley City Council registers 24 state leases of allotments in Ley City. Rybex Stevedos into vended lease covers 8 of these allotments and pays a commercial of 400,000 kina monthly to Ley City Council. The local MP says proper consultation should be made between Ley District, the city authority and developers before deals are made and contractual agreements are signed.
For too long, we have invited investors that do not have the people's interest at heart. So having had a look at the contract, there's a few questions I've raised, and in due course, I will meet with the developers and discuss them, and at the same time with the city council. So why is it that the Lord Mayor and the city manager find it that it is in their interest to pursue this very urgently to allow the developer into land without following due process? Yes, there was a contract signed between them and the developer, but in light of the recent allegations leveled against them by the recent audit, I suggest that they should try to refrain from these things until everything is sorted out.
Julie Badui Owa, National MTV News, Ley.
Coconut Industry Corporation has revealed that the coconut industry is struggling to maintain local production and its exports standing in the global market. Vice Minister for Agriculture and Livestock, Henry Ame, says this government agency needs more support to build and sustain the industry's life. Mr. Ame was speaking at the launch of KIK's new website in Port Moresby recently.
The glory days of the coconut industry was in the 1980s to the early 1990s. It was one of the leading industries shaping and fueling the country's economy apart from coffee and cocoa. But in the past 8 years, the coconut industry has seen a staggering decline in its market price, both locally and on the world market. Just recently, agency responsible, the Coconut Industry Corporation, launched its new website to give hope in reviving the value of the nut and to bring positive changes to its operations. Vice Minister for Agriculture and Livestock, Henry Ame, says the industry needs better support, beginning from coconut growers to big industry players.
And this, I think, hasn't changed for quite some time. And it is now up to the board, the management, to try, and with the government's focuses on agriculture this term, I'm sure we can increase the percentage up to maybe 2%, 3%.
Only 6 provinces have actively kept the coconut industry alive. East New Britain, Madang, the autonomous region of Bougainville, West New Britain, New Ireland and Milne Bay. These provinces have been challenged by poor market prices and quality control. KIK Chairman Kili Tabua says the agency is now on the verge of reshaping and rebranding the industry.
Undertake market studies to assess the level of domestic demand for the various high-value coconut products produced by smallholders. Establish major overseas market outlets for high-value coconut products such as virgin coconut oil.
With more focus to increase local production, the Coconut Industry Corporation aims to support small growers. Its new website will be a tool to help support the industry.
It will help us to continue to exchange of information. At the moment, we all struggle with prices of coconut products and other things that the Coconut Industry Corporation is doing and what our farmers and our SMEs are doing in the provinces.
Jack Lopave Jr., National MTV News.
And now a look at the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.3095 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.302 0.39 Australian dollars, 0.2502 euro, and 33.86 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at near close, gold is trading lower. Coffee, cocoa, and copra closed the day higher. Palm oil closed lower. Crude oil is trading lower. Copper closed the day higher. And on the stock markets, the Dow Jones closed 28 points lower. The ASX is down 15 points, and the All Ordinary is down 11 points. This is Thursday's news. Maritime history: Australia's first submarine found in PNG waters. That and more after these messages. Stay with us. Welcome back to National MTV News. Turning overseas now, an Australian submarine missing since World War I has been found after 103 years. The fate of HMS AE1 and its crew has been one of the most enduring mysteries in Australia's military history.
It's Australia's oldest naval mystery, and after 103 years yesterday, it was finally solved. Now, these shadowy images shot 300 metres beneath the surface off Papua New Guinea are of the Australian World War I submarine HMAS AE1. It disappeared on September 14, 1914, along with its crew of 35 submariners. After 12 previous searches, the sub has been discovered yesterday in an operation funded by the federal government and private backing. The AE1 was one of 2 submarines serving the fledgling Australian Navy at the time, and indeed was the first vessel of any kind lost by the Navy. The other sub, the AE2, fought in the Dardanelles and was deliberately scuttled then by its crew. The finding of AE1 involved high-tech sonar and camera gear similar to what was used to locate the wreckage of HMAS Sydney. The task now is to work out what actually happened to the submarine.
This is at quite a depth. It's over 300 metres, so there is damage to the hull, and it'll be our view to see where that damage caused it to sink or where that damage was caused by it sinking.
The descendants of the crew of the AE1 have been notified of its discovery. The Navy intends to negotiate with the PNG government to ensure that the wreckage be left undisturbed and the site be turned into a war grave.
BMI, or body mass index, has long been used as a measure for healthy weight, but a new study has revealed the old measure is inaccurate in reflecting Australians' expanding weight problems.
BMI, or body mass index, is a calculation of a person's height and weight. A BMI of between 20 and 25 indicates a healthy body weight. But a new research has found that waistlines are widening out of pace with weight increases, meaning that there are a number of people who are not considered obese according to their BMI, but are obese according to their weight measurement. Researchers at Deakin and Monash universities compared the weights and heights of more than 18,000 adults across 3 population studies in 1989, 2000 and 2011, and found that women were typically 5.4 kilograms heavier and had a 10.7 centimetre larger waist. Men increased their weight by 7 kilograms and waist by 7.3 centimetres over the 23 years. In the most recent measure, BMI failed to detect 20% of obese women.
By 2012, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 10 men had an obese waist circumference but not an obese BMI, so we'd be misclassified as not obese.
Quite often on websites online for insurance policies and things like that, they take your height and weight, they obviously measure BMI and you pay accordingly, so it's very unfair.
For me personally, I find it quite daunting when I look at that.
Carrying more weight around our middle increases the risk of hypertension, heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Researchers are now questioning whether we need to replace BMI or have waist circumference as an additional measure.
An Australian court has sentenced a man to 25 years behind bars for the murder of his wife. During the sentencing, the judge said the husband was driven by jealousy, hatred and rage.
Well, it's taken almost 4 years, but today Fernando Paulino was sentenced for killing his estranged wife Teresa in 2013. Their 2 sons, Daniel and Luke, were in court for the hearing. The judge spoke of them throughout, admiring their strength and courage after testifying against their father, who even taunted them throughout the proceedings.
This is a careless soul that put everyone in front of her and just cared for everyone else. She was just the best mum.
Paulino attacked his wife in her mother's reservoir garage in 2013, bashing and stabbing her 16 times. Their marriage breakdown and a looming property settlement, the motive behind the horrific attack. Now, following years of abuse, he had threatened to kill her multiple times, telling their sons about his plan. At the time, she had taken out an intervention order. The judge said it was Paulino's hatred, jealousy and rage that caused him to carry out the planned and premeditated murder.
Teresa silently speaks from the grave, holding up a mirror to society and particularly to men, for us to look deeply at what lies within.
Throughout the entire time, the 55-year-old has maintained his innocence. Due to time already served, he'll be eligible for parole in 2039 when he is 70 years old.
Ever since CNN exposed slave markets operating in Libya last month, there has been a global outpouring of anger and action. CNN ventured into Libya to document the sale of migrants and brought back astonishing and horrific images.
A man addressing an unseen crowd. Big strong boys for farm work, he says. 400. 700. 700. 800. The numbers roll in. These men are sold for 1,200 Libyan pounds, $400 apiece. You are watching an auction of human beings.
Here with National MTV News, Trukai Sports is up next. We'll have the details after these messages.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. PNG Karate Do president Carl Murray has criticized a report published in one of the daily newspapers on December the 19th, claiming it was false and misleading. This report was on the Morobe Karate Association spokesperson Senpai John Tarapia and Sensei Luke Goa, alleging certain incorrect claims about issues pertaining to karate. Tarapia was quoted on the national selections, which he and his team failed to raise the grievances through the recently held AGM on November the 24th in Kimbe. Murray says PNG Olympic Committee has a clear-cut and stringent athlete selection policy tailored to each sporting code, which all member national federations comply with. They submit their respective selections for consideration for events under the IMBED Games, such as the Pacific Games, Commonwealth and Olympic Games. Murray also pointed out that the karate team of 4 athletes of the Pacific Mini Games actually collected 4 silver and 4 bronze, and not as wrongly understated in the article. Moving on, despite rape accusations, the NRL is unlikely to ban Jared Hayne from the sport. His NRL team, the Parramatta Eels, are taking a wait-and-see approach to the matter.
A civil lawsuit document filed in the Santa Clara County Court on Tuesday alleges Hayne engaged in non-consensual sexual intercourse with a Santa Clara woman identified only as Miss V in December 2015. The suit has been filed more than a year after the case was reviewed and rejected by the District Attorney's Office because there was not enough evidence to proceed with criminal charges. The NRL Integrity Unit will continue to monitor the civil case involving Hayne. The Parramatta Eels released a statement on Wednesday afternoon along the same lines, stating the club had been made aware of the allegations and would follow due process in response. They will continue to monitor the situation and will provide an update later. A conference will be held before Judge Peter Kerwin on the 10th of April in which a trial may be scheduled. Elijah Levet, National MTV Sports.
Gulf ISO and Simbu Warriors were the latest admission to the Digicel Cup rugby competition in 2018 after meeting all necessary requirements. PNG National Rugby League competition chairman Adrian Chow said all 16 applicants were assessed on 5 main criteria: governance and management structures, venue, financial backing, linkages to affiliated leagues in their areas, and the franchise fitting. The 6 teams' unsuccessful applications are from the Gulf Isapea, Central Lakatoi, Eastern Highlands Lahanis, Mount Hagen Eagles, Mount Hagen Karadoa and Medang Quila. We go for a break now. When we come back, more of Trukai Sports. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To cricket now. Fresh from winning the Ashes, Australia's cricket captain Steve Smith today traded his bat for a tennis racket.
Well, Jackie, with the Ashes already wrapped up, Australia's attention has firmly turned to a series whitewash against the old enemy. And ahead of the Boxing Day test, Steve Smith, the Aussie captain, he's arrived in Melbourne a day ahead of the rest of his teammates to have a hit-up of a different kind here at Melbourne Park. Smith joined Canadian big server Milos Raonic for a New Balance promotion. And the Aussie skipper is hitting the ball just as well on the tennis court as he is out in the middle against England.
Usually if I play a few games, I get a bit better, but I've got a terrible backhand. My forehand's okay.
Don't tell Milos your weaknesses, mate.
Yeah, that's right.
I know how it feels. The Aussie Quicks have been at their ruthless best throughout the opening 3 tests, with the tourists having no answers to the pace and bounce of Stark, Cummins and Hazelwood. Former England Test captain Mike Atherton has called for umpires to put an end to the short ball tactics against the English tail, but Smith won't be reining in his fast bowling trio.
I think it's a bit over the top. You know, we obviously had a plan from the start of the series that we were going to bowl a lot of short stuff to those guys, much like we did back in 2013, and no doubt if you know, if they had the kind of pace that our bowlers can generate, then they'd probably do the same thing. So I think it's a bit over the top.
Doubts remain over the fitness of quick Mitchell Stark, the Aussie left-arm spearhead. He's still on crutches and suffering a bruised heel. Selectors say they will err on the side of caution with the Ashes already wrapped up. Jackson Bird set to be his replacement on Boxing Day.
The start of the 2018 Winter Olympic Games in Pyeongchang, South Korea is just 50 days away. And while hosting an Olympic Games can be challenging for most countries, South Korea also has to deal with nuclear threats, Olympic bans and slow ticket sales.
A SWAT team rappels down a high-rise building. A drone carrying a bomb is shot out of the sky. And a chemical bomb is removed by a specialist team. Pyeongchang Winter Olympics is preparing for any eventuality. These latest mock drills with the backdrop of the Olympic Stadium.
We have a government body consists of 19 different authorities, military, police, intelligence, etc. And they are just preparing for all kinds of scenarios, including cyber attacks.
Kim Jae-yol is Executive Vice President of the Pyeongchang Organising Committee. With North Korea just 50 miles or 80 kilometres away from the Games, the focus is on security. But Kim points to the opportunities for more unity 30 years after Seoul hosted the Summer Olympics.
So Olympics are much more than just global sporting events, because it's the events that unite the global citizens through shared love of sport. And we saw this during the 88 Seoul Games, when the Eastern and Western Bloc countries came together, putting aside their differences to celebrate Olympic Games in Seoul.
North Korean figure skaters Ryom Tae-ok and Kim Joo-sik have qualified for the Winter Games. No word from Pyongyang if they'll be allowed to compete. North Korea boycotted the 88 Games in the south. As for the IOC decision to ban Russia for violating anti-doping rules, Kim says those wanting to compete under a neutral flag will be welcomed and treated fairly.
During the Games, we would have 300 international experts monitoring the whole doping process. Samples that we take will be delivered and analyzed at the state-of-the-art laboratory in Seoul, which will deliver the result in 24 hours.
For Kim, the main legacy of the Olympics, he hopes, will be making Pyeongchang a famous winter holiday destination for years to come, and sparking a winter sports movement among the youth of South Korea, creating the athletes of the future.
And that's it for Trukai Sports. We go for a break. When we come back, the weather details for the next 24 hours.
Trukai Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
A quick look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours in the southern region. Mostly fine in Port Moresby, Daru and Kerma. A shower or two expected in Popondetta. To the Momase region, showers in Leh and Wau, a few showers as well for Madang, Wibak and Vanimo. To the New Guinea Islands region, brief showers in Lorangau, Kavieng, Kokopo, Rabaul and Buka, showers and thunderstorms for Kimbe. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mende and Wabeg, all these major centres can expect a few showers over the next 24 hours.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
And before we go, a recap of our top stories this evening. Political group seeks court's views over public funds. MVIL says 26 million kina spent on insurance this year. And Western Highlands chief and leader laid to rest. And that's the news, sport and weather for today, Thursday, the 21st of December 2017. On behalf of the MTV News team, pleasant viewing. Good night.